and welcome to the Aural Apothecary podcast, authentic chat about medicines, pharmacy and healthcare in the UK.
Pharmacists Jamie, Gimmo and STC take on topical and controversial stories but keep it edgy yet light-hearted.
Pod guests share their career-defining drug, song and book, and also share their joyful patient stories.
This episode of the Aural Apothecary is dedicated to and in memory of Charlie Gimson and Bernard Malley. Welcome to the Aural Apothecary podcast. My name is Jamie Hayes. It's our Almanac for 2023. Time for some reflection and a festive drink at the end of another year. To help us look back over the last year, we're joined in the Aural Apothecary arms by our honorary apothecaries Clare Howard and Jonathan Underhill. Before we welcome Jonathan and Clare, let's welcome my two fellow apothecaries. STC is in Bournemouth and Gimmo is in Cardiff. Welcome both.
Evening.
Evening. Nice to be back together again.
It's been a while.
Yeah, when was it? July, June?
July, wasn't it?
Since we last recorded?
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen each other since, but I think it was July.
Yeah, too long.
Yeah.
Indeed. Should we get our guest straight on?
Yeah.
Jonathan, Clare, welcome.
Evening. Thank you for having us.
Hey boys, how you doing? Nice to see you, Clare, as well.
Nice to see you all.
Seen quite a lot of you lately. It's been lovely.
Yeah, it's been a busy November.
I have to remind you, Clare, that I think it was this time last year that you had a law named after you.
Did I?
It was the inverse Clare law.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'd forgotten all about that. Yes.
Is this the episode when we're finally going to get that story, Jamie?
No,
The
no,
inverse
that's-
care law story?
No,
Is
no.
it a bit like the Gavin and Stacey and Uncle Bryn and Jason thing, is it?
Although you talking about the inverse Clare law did remind me about what's his name. Cleverly was in a lot of stick this week, wasn't he? About saying about somewhere was a shithole.
Stockton.
Yeah, I immediately thought of the inverse Clare law actually.
Should we remind people what it was?
Now they have to go back and listen to last
Yeah,
year's
they-
episode. Yeah, let's move on.
Was it the
Was
worse the place you come
shittier
from?
the place you're from,
Yeah.
the more likely you are to do something amazing with yourself.
Yes.
And so I think we're all speak
Yes.
to that, don't we?
There we go. The inverse Clare law.
Okay, look, you mentioned Cleverly. Look, I will pick up something because we have had an off season, haven't we? And so take a listen to this.
Now listen, it's not just ministers who have to kind of watch what they say, particularly now in the world of artificial intelligence. Steve the chemist, I think, quotes, amazing, close quotes, is the most banal, overused...
Oh, what an amazing question. It's an amazing question.
It's the most banal and overused word in the English language. So to stop me reporting on The Rest is Politics 2023... weekly usage of it, AC 51, Rory Stewart 127. What single word do you wordsmiths both detest currently and why?
My work here is done.
So for those who don't know, that was the Rest is Politics podcast. Who I would say they're rivals, but they definitely an episode, I think.
They're more a sister podcast, aren't they?
Well, I don't think I've ever seen Steve so excited on the WhatsApp group to get his name mentioned on The Rest is Politics. So well done, Steve.
No, the truth is that I didn't mention it until people were listening to it. I think Claire was one of them who said, oh my word, I've just been listening genuinely to it and I didn't tell anybody. And it came on and I had lots of messages privately from other people saying, oh my word, I think I've just heard you on The Rest is Politics.
Jacob, my son Jacob came flying down the stairs. He said, listen to this. So yes. True fame.
What you must mention to Jacob, Clare, is that Steve stalked them for a good 6 months.
Yeah, I reported every week on
Wore
their
them
use
down.
of amazing. And Claire, you've already used the word amazing. We've already been on for 5 minutes.
Use it all the time. You're not.
It's that
you don't make
dog
the
with a
rules.
bone thing.
Exactly right.
Wears them down.
I have to say, it is my second favourite podcast.
Yeah, after leading.
Well done, Jonathan. Very good.
Just leave that there.
Okay, what we're looking for today, 2 reflections on the year, a highlight from Series 5, and a Christmas cracker. Who would like to start us off with a reflection from 2023?
Yeah. So my highlights from the year, and sort of reflections on the year, I saw Bruce Springsteen for the 40th time of my life in Copenhagen, and I cried.
Again.
Which is just normal. Obviously Newcastle, my beloved Newcastle United, are in the Champions League and beat Paris Saint-Germain, the richest club in the world, 4-1. And that was amazing. Probably my highlight of the year, though, was winning the Fantasy League Rugby World Cup tournament that Steve hosted on WhatsApp. I have to say, I'm still waiting for my trophy, but that was epic from as far as I'm concerned.
This is a medicines podcast.
So, on the medicines theme, then I've got two papers that I think have been, two papers. One from this year that made me really think about things. One was a paper that was published in the British Journal of Clinical Pharmacology. And what they did was they looked at the performance of ChatGPT, the AI tool, versus clinical pharmacists, and just to see what the performance was like. Because obviously it's a big existential threat to us all, isn't it, AI?
Look what happened to Babylon.
Exactly. So what does this mean for us all? What does it mean particularly for clinical pharmacists and the role that we play? And it's a really, really interesting study. I guess we can put it in the show notes, the link to it. But it was really interesting that ChatGPT did really well, apart from when it got complex, when it involved complex things and complex patients, where it needed the human to do that. And I think there's a lot in that. We're talking about this at NICE. How do we use AI to do, when we're doing systematic reviews and stuff like that? And there's only so much that AI can do at the moment, and then it needs a human intervention to really make sure that you're doing it right and doing it properly. And I thought that was a really interesting paper.
Yeah, amen to that. And in fact, you sent it to me, Jonathan. I didn't know you were bringing it up here today, and I exactly thought, oh, that's great, because that's what you think as somebody who's good at complex stuff. And as you say, it just really did well in drug counselling and things like that, and identifying adverse drug reactions. So, yeah, I think there's a long way to go yet in the world of AI.
So I had AI as one of my things. So that was one of the things I was going to talk about, because we were chatting yesterday, weren't we, Steve, about Babylon collapsing in the summer during COVID, and it was going to save the NHS and everything like this, and it collapsed partly because I think the guy just mucked up the finances and went too big too quick. But I think also the AI wasn't quite there, was it? But it's getting there. What was interesting was I was chatting to a GP, not ChatGPT, chatting to a GP about this, and she said she'd gone from being a skeptic to thinking, have anyone used Copilot, Microsoft Copilot? So it's the new little bot that sits next to you in Microsoft 365, and it does lots of little tasks on the side, and it does it in a different way to, it's not like the paperclip we used to have. It's quite intelligent, and it knows when you want to search for something, or it says, do you want to put up this file, and things like this, and you can ask it questions. And what she was saying is she can actually see a real place for AI now as a co-pilot to her consultations. So in a way, in the way we used to have the BNF sat next to us, you have a chatbot sat next to you in the surgery, and it asks, it can ask you to present some of the complex data in a way the patient can understand. It can search for a recent study. It can even offer advice, but then the GP puts that advice in the context of the patient. So I've turned around a bit. It still scares the crap out of me, but I think as an adjunct, they're already starting to use it in things like radiology, aren't they? So I think as an adjunct to clinical professionals, I think actually it could be a real saviour. I did ask ChatGPT, so let me just pull up my notes. So I asked it if AI could replace pharmacists. So here's what it said. While AI can automate certain aspects of pharmacy tasks like managing inventory or processing prescriptions, it's unlikely to fully replace pharmacists. Pharmacists provide valuable expertise in patient consultations, medication management, and healthcare advice, which involves a level of human interaction and judgment that AI currently lacks. So there you go. Even ChatGPT doesn't want to take over yet.
There you go. And it's not even a pharmacy podcast.
No, that could actually be the conclusion of this paper. It's exactly that. Brilliant.
And do you know what? Somebody in the office today said about AI, and I said to them, you know what? If AI was asked to issue all these prescriptions, it wouldn't be able to do it because of the level of interactions that come up on the screen, right, on the GP system. I think it would go into meltdown because it would immediately go, no, can't do that, 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 which is exactly what we're saying. And so, yeah, there is some way to go. And thank you for explaining to me what that new icon is at the bottom of my laptop. I wondered what the hell it was, and I couldn't get rid of it. Copilot.
I do think there might be something, not so much AI, but machine learning. So the thing we struggle with deprescribing is I can't say to the patient, if you stop this antidepressant, this is what will happen to you over the next few weeks. In the same way as you can when you start a drug, you say, look, it'll take 3 to 6 weeks to work. You might have these things happen, but stick with it. Machine learning, I think eventually, if we had enough people populate the sort of data, machine learning could tell us that story to say, okay, if you've got someone on anticoagulant and then you stop their beta blocker, these are the likely scenarios. I think machine learning will help us get better at that part of the complexity that at the moment we don't really have, and we can't give patients that story. And that's why people are so fearful of sometimes stopping medicines in older people because of that.
And the AI that we're using at the moment isn't really AI, is it? It's machine learning. I suppose the next phase is these, what do they call it, generalized intelligence. That's when we get nuked.
Very good. So, Claire, what was one of your reflections?
So, reflection-wise, it's, 2023 has been a really difficult year. I think for me, it's been an awful lot about loss. We've lost 2 incredible pharmacists, David Cousins, Nina Barnett, just titans of our profession, and irreplaceable in everything they knew, everything they did, everything they taught us. And I think there's a number of us kind of still reeling from that. Obviously, on top of that, I lost my dad as well, and loads of people lose parents, and it does kind of make you reflect and think about a whole load of things. And then kind of in the middle of that, so right in the middle of, dad died, then was his funeral. My poor eldest son had to do his A-levels, which was horrendous, but bless him, he smashed the A-levels, but he's gone off to university. So without kind of wanting to bring it down a bit, it's been an awful lot of loss for me this year, but kind of interspersed with these sort of amazing highs too. So I'll be honest, I won't be sad to see the back of 2023. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, and I think just kind of feeling that reflection of losing a parent and kind of thinking about those things.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that, Claire, because I lost my dad this year as well, and it was only a couple of months ago, and it encourages you. Well, you reflect on the healthcare that they received, and that makes you think about your own job, I think, which could be seen as morbid, but I did, and I saw the good, the bad, the ugly in his care towards the end, but yeah, it makes you reflect on the year as well. So I'm with you on that one.
I think for me, my professional and my personal life absolutely collided because, as you know, I spend the vast bulk of my time at the moment teaching on the action learning sets, helping pharmacists and GPs to navigate how we better care for older people and their medicines. And then I was sort of right in the thick of actually doing that, with my dad's care. And yeah, it's a bit of a challenging one, and yeah, learnt a lot, share bits in the action learning sets, and yeah, tricky stuff.
And it makes you think about shared decision making. I know we talked to a lot of patients last season, and our conclusion, wasn't it, was that shared decision. I mean, we've been talking about it for a long while, but shared decision making is the thing that we should all be thinking about. And that was my experience. Where the care was good, I could link it to some proper conversations with the healthcare professionals. Where the care was bad is where things were being done to us, without the proper conversations. And so I know we're going to talk a bit about the series later on, but my experience just props up exactly what we talked about over the last series.
Yeah, I can absolutely sort of see that. In fact, this week I went back to a letter that we got from the consultant. So kind of right towards the end, Dad had dementia. His GP picked up he probably had some Parkinson's symptoms, so we were referred to a specialist. And I was thinking, what are we seeing a Parkinson's specialist for now? But anyway, you go along with it. It's a gargantuan effort to get somebody out to an outpatient's appointment. And nobody thinks about this stuff really for patients, let's be honest. But I went back to the letter, and my mum had sort of described the thing my mum was holding on to was, my dad, his appetite was still great. He ate his sponge puddings from Marks and Spencer's, and that was a real comfort to mum. Kind of, he was still eating, it was good, and he slept well at night, and that gave her a rest. And so she'd explained all of that kind of to this consultant. And then it just made me laugh. I looked at the letter, and I'll just read it out, because I looked at it the other day and I thought, oh God, it's worse than I remember. It said, in summary, has features of Parkinsonisms which are most likely vascular. I would recommend a trial of cobeneldopa. I've discussed with the patient today that people with vascular Parkinson's don't really have a good response to levodopa. We've discussed the risks and benefits. She is worried about any untoward side effects. And then in bold letters to the GP, I would appreciate it if you can commence him on cobeneldopa 62.5 milligrams 3 times a day to be taken at 8, 12 and 5 p.m. And you just think, you hadn't listened to anything she said at all about what was important to her. Didn't want any GI side effects. They'd just come through all of that. Nausea and vomiting, mum's not great with. He was sleeping, he was having hallucinations, but they weren't traumatic. And he was really calm and content. And you just think, rode roughshod over all that, start the drug. And I intervened and I said, we ain't going there. That's not going to benefit him. That's not what we're doing. And it's really hard to do that when it's your dad, but that's what we did. And I'm so glad we didn't go down that route with the drugs.
I think that's a really, really great example, Claire. Do you remember when we talked about shared decision making in the podcast that I did? And there is that concept that shared decision making is I make the decision, then I share it with the patient. That's exactly what you've just described there. And people, that doctor probably thinks he's done a really good job there and he's been trying to be really helpful. It's only when you have that conversation with them afterwards and you reflect on it and you say, well, actually, this is what the person wanted and this is what happened. And you've ignored that. That isn't shared decision making.
And it's about the material thing, the things that are materially important to my mum and dad at that point were their quality of life, sleeping at night, getting rest. None of those materially important things were considered at all. And it's just fascinating because that's what we teach all the time in the action learning set.
Absolutely. Great example.
And I'm sorry to say that we get letters like that every single day. And in the main, coming from single organologists. And they're not listening. They think that one size fits all. That standard dose starting of that particular type of drug for that kind of condition, that is what the textbook would tell you. This is not a textbook patient. And so that's why I get so enraged with all of this. And it's almost worse by saying at the beginning of the letter, I've discussed the risks and benefits. Or have you? Did they? Well, they obviously weren't listening to what matters to your mum and to your dad.
She is worried about any untoward side effects. Yeah, you bet she is, because she's got to manage them. That's the reality. She's got to manage those side effects. So yeah, it was a sobering, this is where we have a long way to go. The work of people at Alf Collins, they've brought us so far, but crikey, there's a long, long way to go still.
Well, I feel for both of you. I still have both my parents, but, it's coming. And so I know in particular with Claire, I had quite a few conversations with you, didn't I? Because you did have some difficult decisions. And as you've said, it shouldn't take the fact that you are somebody in the know as a health professional to be able to navigate that. And I think that's how we all get frustrated about it. So well done to both of you.
For sure. And so grateful to you, Steve, and people like Lucy Pollock. I was surrounded by brilliant people who helped me make those decisions. And yes, but not everybody has that, and nor should they have to get good care for their parents. So yeah, lots still to be done. But if I was enthusiastic about this stuff before, well, flipping heck, I've got fire in my belly now. So kind of watch out, world, because this isn't going away and I'm not going away with it either.
How are we doing with our festive drinks?
Sorry, didn't mean to.
Not at all, Claire. Not at
Right.
all. What have we got?
So me and Steve are drinking something called Sentia.
Sentia Spirit. Okay, so I'm going to come in now about why Gimmo and I are both drinking this. And this is my highlight of Series 5. Obviously, all the episodes, loved them all. But the one I liked the most, because it was the most unusual, I think, was Trevor, the wild card, as Jamie called him, Sylvester, where we had a very responsible and careful, but it wasn't scripted, discussion about the use of psychedelics. And I've re-listened to it this week. And honestly, I just think it's excellent. And we talked about this. It's GABA spirit, and it's non-alcoholic, and it's made from lots of different herbs, and it's supposed to take you to the 2-drink sweet spot. You know, when you've had 2 drinks and you're feeling that kind of, feeling a bit more relaxed and, happy to talk to anybody and feeling the love. That's what this is supposed to bring. So I thought it would be fun if I sent it as a gift to both Jamie and Gimmo. Unbeknownst to me, listen to this, Blood Brothers, Gimmo was actually sending the same gift to me and to Jamie. So Gimmo and I are now drinking it.
Let me step in there. Let me step in. And I thought, what the hell are they doing sending me bubble bath?
It tastes like it tastes like a cross between mulled wine and Ribena. That's all I can describe it. But it's who's behind it, Steve? Because I think there's a pharmacy link there, isn't there? There's a definite medicine.
Professor David Nutt.
Yes, that guy.
So yeah, it's unusual. I don't know. I'm feeling the love. I've had two with gin, not with gin, with tonic.
that'll do it.
I've had 2 with tonic, and I'm actually feeling quite mellow.
Maybe some confounding there, Steve.
Yeah, of course. Anyway, so that's what Gimmo and I are drinking. But Jamie, no, he put it in his bath.
I got a nice glass of red on the go, thank you.
Me too, Jamie. A nice ripasso of Valpolicella. It's delicious.
It is quite nice with a bit of tonic. I don't know if it had an effect. I mean, we are half an hour late because I couldn't get my computer to work, so maybe it explains that.
Yeah.
So, STC, a reflection from the last...
Well, I've given you one on Series 5, but you want me to give you one on the year?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, well, I'm going to give you a real goodie. And at the time, I actually tweeted about it every single working day that it came out. I think it was the month of February, and it was the gpevidence.org website by Dr. Julian Treadwell. So for all of us that want to talk about how to have good decisions about medicines, whether it's mostly preventative medicines, then this is the place to go. We've talked about it lots on the website. So I thought it was so important that, as I say, I tweeted about it every single working day. And it's brilliant. And we saw Julian, all of us, when we said we'd all met each other recently, we were all at the RPS conference, but then Jonathan, Clare and I were also at the 5-year celebratory event of the Polypharmacy Action Learning Sets, and Julian was there himself. So I think that's been a massive addition. And he tells me about, the number of hits that he gets, and the top ones are still anticoagulation, HRT, and I want to say statins. That's it. Yeah. So that's my highlight.
So I was going to ask that, Steve. So he's got some figures on usage. Has he got figures on numbers and any sense of any sort of improvement in care as a result of using it? I know that's a really difficult one to measure.
I think that's going to be impossible to measure. So all he's got at the minute is the
number
of hits.
Do you want an outcome measure or a process measure, Paul?
I was just going to say that, but I thought the listeners don't want our in-jokes.
Yeah. So, I don't think he'd be able to prove that. But he does know the number of hits that he gets on each of the individual pages. So, yeah.
Because the risk with something like that is it's an absolutely superb tool, but it doesn't get used in it. That would be the travesty.
Sure. This isn't a lie. I used it this afternoon. Honestly, I didn't plan this. I was going to say I'd written my notes. What I was going to say this afternoon. Quite a tricky patient, and she said to me, "But what is the difference between using aspirin and using clopidogrel when they're saying that I've had a stroke, even though they denied that they'd had a stroke?" And I thought, there's only one way out of this. I pulled up the gpevidence.org. I gave her the numbers, and the number of people difference was like 1. It went down from 13 people out of 100 to 12 people out of 100 that might have a stroke in the next 3 years. And she said, "Thanks very much. I'll stick on my aspirin."
Excellent.
I think when that sort of thing is used in context, it's really powerful, isn't it? The work that Julian's done has been great. It's interesting because we're publishing the update to the lipid escalation guideline for secondary prevention of cardiovascular disease, probably sometime in December. And one of the things Julian's going to include within that the benefits in icon arrays for bempedoic acid and inclisiran and other alternatives, because that's missing at the moment from GP evidence. But I think that's the sort of thing that can be really helpful to facilitate shared decision making on this, because it is still a preference sensitive decision. Some people think you've had a heart attack, let's get the lipid levels as low as possible. It needs to be a conversation with an individualised.
And that takes us back to our discussion earlier about AI, doesn't it? You plug something like the evidence base in that program into AI, and suddenly, it's using that information in the context of the question you ask, and it suddenly becomes much more powerful.
Yeah, that plus pharmacogenomics, and we could lick this over prescribing polypharmacy malarkey, could we not?
That's the future apothecary consultancy.
Let me add one in then. Let me add a reflection in, which will maybe knit some of that together. Look, I picked my conversations with the public. So like most of us on the call, in particularly Jonathan and Claire, we spent a lot of time of our careers educating fellow professionals and being involved in the medical education and therapeutics education of prescribers. And so I've made a positive decision really to start having more conversations with the public, and it started this time last year actually, and so I've continued that through the year. Town halls, churches, rugby clubs, conversations with the public about their medicines and their medicine taking behaviour, which has been just incredible. And so where AI fits with the audience that I'm talking to, I've been talking to, average, aged between 50 and 90, they're the people that are turning up. Just incredible conversations. And then I'm fast forwarding then, and look, so STC has been threatening to do this for some time. But listeners, talk is cheap. And so in August, I did 5 minutes at Cardiff Comedy Club. Over 300 people as I delivered You and Your Medicines, open brackets, educational with humour, close brackets. And so that, honestly, those conversations that I'd had with the public over the last 12 months really informed that session in August. So that was one of my reflections, and I will continue to do more of it in 2024. It was great. I did one last week in a church in Torvine, and it's just an incredible privilege to go and have a chat to these individuals about what they're going through with their medicines.
Fair play to you.
Very impressive.
Well done, Jamie. Well done.
I'm still waiting for USTC to step up and...
Well, as you know, I probably inspired you to do it.
Oh, always.
No, it was when I turned 50, I wanted to do a number of things to, test myself that I'd never done before. And I said I was going to do stand-up. And I've written a lot of material for it. But then COVID happened, and then it's never happened since then. And then Jamie beat me to it. So, yeah, I am going to do it. But well done to you.
Thank you. Okay, what should we go to next? Another reflection on the year.
Okay, so I've got one. So remember, Steve, that you predicted 2023 would be the year of community pharmacy? Well, I suppose I wanted to mention the new Pharmacy First scheme, and I know it's England, so it's off our patch, Jamie. But I just thought, and I don't know the details of it, but it just, to me, that and a couple of other things around prescribing that are happening, and obviously I know in Wales and Scotland they've been doing something similar for a few years, and I just think it's signalling a real shift change in what. So in my previous jobs, always arguing the case for a greater role for community pharmacists and what they do. Hopefully it really does mark a shift change in that sort of away from dispensing to more clinical based services. Not that dispensing is not important, but it's that shift into greater care. So I don't know if it's going to be successful. I don't know the details. It seems to be fairly well received, and essentially, as I understand it, in England they're going to get funding for treating 7 conditions, but conditions that might actually require things like antibiotics and prescription only medicines. So again, that's a big step forward. So yeah, I thought it was good. Well, I was going to say not everyone is happy, and so this was something from Dr. Zorag. I don't know if that's a real name or a pen name, in Pulse. And she says...
Well, wait a minute. We're not reading something out from Pulse.
She says, I dread the implications of the Pharmacy First scheme because, like many other GPs, I fear widespread inappropriate antibiotic prescribing and missed cases of sepsis, with the consequences of this falling back onto us. So I think that's a load of rubbish, but and I don't think many GPs are in that place. Maybe they are, but no, great scheme, great for community pharmacy, and I think the start of something great.
There we go. Let me throw in my Christmas cracker at this point then. I'm going early with my Christmas cracker.
Who are you pulling it with, though?
Because my Christmas cracker is an individual, okay? So at the business end of RPS conference, you were all there. We were in the bar, weren't we, at our hotel. It was 1 o'clock in the morning. There was there was the 5 of us, plus Dr. Lawrence Brad and Mr. DJ Cooper. And we were joined by 2 colleagues from Scotland, Pamela Young and Nicola Middleton. And Coops and I had the pleasure to speak to Nicola, a community pharmacist and independent prescriber whose enthusiasm, passion and joy for her work is my Christmas cracker. Scotland should bottle it and sell it.
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah, here. They were both great. Absolutely. The passion.
Can I just say, I think she was drinking something a bit stronger than Gamma Sentient Spirit.
Yeah.
But who am I to say that?
Yeah.
No, you're right. It was good. Can I just add to what you've just said, though, Gimmo, about Pharmacy First? Because it is quite exciting. And there are what we call pathfinders that are starting in the new year. But the thing that I wanted to ask the chiefs pharmacists at the RPS conference, but there was no time, was, look, I think this has really worked. But in my opinion, there's only one thing that's going to really help to make it work. And that is access to the actual general record. So in other words, if you're sat in community pharmacy, if you don't have read and write access to what's in the GP record, then I don't think this is going to work as well as it might, and it may be unsafe. So I was very pleased to see that Camilla Hawthorne, who's the president of the RCGP, also a GP in Wales, has on the record saying that she supports it because of this thing called GP Connect, where that will indeed give you that access. And therefore, that gives you the continuity that you require, because otherwise you end up with what has been coined to me this year as one of my other reflections on the year, is this idea of prescription tennis, where we have all these out of stock issues, and the tennis idea that it just goes backwards and forwards between the community pharmacy and the GP, and it satisfies nobody, and the poor patient is left in the middle. And I'm telling you, because I've got access to the records, if you had access to the record, you'd be able to, action what you couldn't supply, because you'd safely be able to see what you could supply, and that would be the end of it. We wouldn't be having a prescription tennis.
Completely agree, Steve. So I was on the oversight group for the pharmacy first service. One of the things we talked about a lot was access to records, and that is something that was you have to have that, and that is happening for the launch of the service. So that's great. Just to clarify, it's six conditions, common conditions, and prescribing will be via patient group directions. So it'll be to a protocol, to certain set of standards, with quite a lot of exclusions, and making sure that sepsis flags, red flags for sepsis, is all over there, and there is a really good education and training package going along with it as well. So I have to say, I'm probably biased because I was on the oversight group for this, but I think Jill Loader and others have done a fantastic job delivering this, and absolute props to them for that.
I suspect she's working really hard on it.
I think she is working really hard on it.
I was just going to mention Jill. I know Jill very well. So Jill is one of those people. She works incredibly hard. She never gets any of the glory for these things. And yet these sort of things, discharge medicine service wouldn't have happened without Waz Bakir and Jill Loader. She's incredible. And pharmacy ought to be kind of very grateful for the policy people who make these stuff happen. And they never get the plaudits, but God, they work hard.
Here.
Can I just come in on prescription tennis? Look. So I've just been speaking in the early 70s. There was an author called Timothy Galway, who wrote the book The Inner Game of Tennis, and he came up with the equation: performance equals potential minus interference.
Nice.
That has gone on to be a worldwide accepted definition of performance. And so for the last 6 weeks, I've been talking to medicines optimization individuals about, well, what is the inner game of prescribing? What is the inner game of medicines optimization? So I thought I'd just join the dots there for you.
I think since we're talking about the RPS conference, I think me and Steve should take this opportunity to publicly apologise to you, Jamie.
No, never.
So You mentioned there, Steve, that you were waiting for an opportunity to speak to the chief pharmacist, but actually we were watching the chief pharmacist, and both of us forgot that we were supposed to be outside helping set up the live show that we were about to do. So when we came out, Jamie done it all himself. So thank you, Jamie. I've never seen Jamie cross before, and it's not something I ever want to see again. So I'd like to take this opportunity to publicly apologise and promise that I'll never do it again.
Yeah, complacency. Complacency.
I'm not joining in with that, but I did see him really, really cross when I was on the Rugby World Cup fortnight. But I won't go into that. It involved a lot of rain and an Uber, but let's not go there.
And some rage.
I'm going to intervene with my Christmas cracker, because otherwise you lot are going to start fighting, and I can't bear that, as you know. So when you said Christmas cracker, I was like, oh God, what am I going to do for that? And I didn't use ChatGPT because I don't really know how to use it, but I did go down a sort of internet rabbit hole, and I learned all sorts of things about Christmas crackers. And actually, when Christmas crackers were first developed, they were supposed to be individualized presents. Now, the royal family still have individualized Christmas crackers. So I thought, if it is good enough for Charles and Camilla, it is good enough for my Aural Apothecary fellows. So I've got you each an individualised present that would go in your Christmas cracker. So I think first up is Jonathan. So Jonathan, your Christmas cracker is a tissue, because you said to me a little while ago how you're an awful crier. And I thought, oh, that's one of those things blokes sort of say, but flipping heck, there's been a lot of tears this year. So my Christmas cracker gift to you is a tissue for all the tears that you have cried.
Thank you, Claire. Proud to cry, always.
Yeah, don't be ashamed. I think next up, who shall I do next? I think next up is Jamie. So for Jamie, I've got an Aural Apothecary bookmark, because every time I speak to Jamie and I go, and we'll be putting the world to rights and sorting something, and he'll go, Claire, have you read? And it'll be some book that I have not read, because I don't read self-help books or management books very much. And I just think, mate, how do you get time to read? So I don't know whether you need a bookmark, because I think you'd probably devour books in one go. But that is my Christmas cracker gift to you, is a bookmark.
Thank you,
who's
Claire.
next? Gimmo, I was trying to make a connection between Wigan and Skelmersdale, and I think this is to atone for, when you grow up in Wigan, Skem is a bit of a joke, and I feel really bad about that. Now I've met you, the first person I've ever met from Skelmersdale. So I tried to find a connection, and the only thing I could find is there is a footballer called Leon Osman, who was born in Wigan but brought up in Skelmersdale, played for Carlisle, Torquay, and eventually made his England debut in 2012. So in your Christmas cracker is a picture of Leon Osman. And that's it. That's the only connection between the two towns I could find.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
And then, you're very welcome. And then last but not least, STC. So you talk all the time about how we know what the other's going to say before they say it. So I thought actually what I would get is a tinfoil hat, so that when we're together, we can no longer be telepathic and know what the other's going to think. Because I don't think groupthink is a good thing.
Very good.
So if that stopped you fighting, boys, that's my Christmas cracker gift to all of you.
Well, you gave it a lot of thought, yeah.
You've done well, Claire. You've done well.
Claire, there is one thing that connects Skelmersdale and Wigan.
What's that?
The A577.
I was going to say that.
It's only one way, and people only go one way.
One way. Okay.
So when we used to go out in Wigan, we used to have to put on what I call a woolly back accent.
A woolly back accent.
Otherwise, I used to have a strong Scouse accent then, and they wouldn't let you in. They wouldn't let you in any club with a Scouse accent in Wigan.
Oh,
But there we go. Put your tinfoil hat on, Claire, and I'll take a picture.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. When you're in Wigan, like how many miles between the two towns, and one is Scousers and the other is Woolybacks, and people in the south kind of, I don't think, can get their heads around that, can they? That such a short distance, completely different accent, culture, yeah, all of it. Anyway, I'm sorry for all the bad things I ever laughed about at Skem.
Okay, let's
all right.
Let's move on to highlights of Series 5. If they haven't come up already, who wants to kick us off with highlights of Series 5? So it took us...
Well, shall I kick off? Because normally we're quite military with our recording. Steve keeps us in check. He's got a spreadsheet keeping an eye on us. And suddenly our sort of once every 2 week schedule with lots of planning. It went a bit to pot, didn't it, with patients, because we sort of had to be much more accommodating of them, and I don't know what it was, but it took a long time, didn't it? It was great fun, but it was a lot harder work than a normal series. But I suppose my highlight was, well, I wrote a blog about it, which is on the website, so I'm going to commend that to people, because I actually thought, I thought I was quite pleased with it. It was quite good, in that I think it talked about the theme that came from virtually every conversation, which was shared decision making, and so if you haven't read it already and you are a fan of the podcast, then have a read, because it really does summarise that series up quite nicely, I think, and it will point you in the right direction. But the bit at the end that I wrote about stuck for me was when we were talking about Alf Collins and the work that we did, and he talked about, well, the way I summarised it was around, as we continue to walk the path of person-centred care, let's infuse our practices with genuine curiosity, empathy, and a commitment to shared decision making. It's time to harmonise the symphony of healthcare, ensuring every note resonates with the well-being of the patients that we serve. And I wrote that before my dad died, but actually it is something I probably could have written after as well, because I think it summed up the theme of the whole series. So yeah.
And what website is that on, Gimmo?
It is on, and it's spelt theauralapothecary.com. And actually we should have had that as our highlight. Maybe Steve has. So again, well done, Steve. Pretty much single-handedly created the website, and
Couldn't stop him.
We didn't do much other than answer WhatsApps 77 times a day.
Well, no, Gimmo and I discussed having. Well, perhaps you should have a meeting about this.
And I just did it.
And then he just did it.
To be fair, the Podpage software is incredibly easy compared to many I've used. But yeah, I think we're pleased with it, and it does allow us to, it's easier to send people to those to the website, and yeah, it definitely gets traffic, and people leave us messages and things, so it's lovely.
Okay. Look, Jonathan, Series 5.
I mean, I have to say, I thought this whole series was the best of all the series so far, and some of the patient stories were, again, the tissues were out, Clare, on quite a few occasions, and I actually found it really difficult to pick a highlight. I mean, to start off with Graham Prestwich, who is an absolute legend, talking about patients as a project manager. That was just great, and Graham's an absolute. I've worked on a few sort of groups with him, and he's really, really fantastic. You mentioned Alf Collins. Alf is retiring soon, and we're going to really miss him from the service. All the stuff that he's done around shared decision making, certainly been there with me and others, sort of really trying to fight the corner for shared decision making.
I heard him say he's been a pain specialist for 34 years and never initiated an opioid for chronic pain in a single patient. That
Indeed.
is
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Wow,
Hats off to you.
That is incredible.
Absolutely.
It is incredible.
And I mean, Louise Jenkins, I think you're going to mention Louise, but she was just great as well, and really fantastic episode. And I have to say, I was going to say this is probably the low light of the series, but I have to say it was probably my favourite episode. That's when my old friend and colleague Neil Maskery finished the series. Two things he did again made me cry, but the song he picked was "Our House," Crosby, Stills and Nash, which was he and Helen got married last year, and that was the song that they walked down the aisle to. And I was in charge of queuing up the song at the right time, and it was like I was absolutely patting myself, thinking I'm going to get this wrong, and he's going to hate me forever. But I got it right, and that was great. And then when he finished off reading that the Voices from the Heart of Medicine stuff, oh my word! I don't know if people subscribe to that. To that blog.
I did as a result of
seriously.
Yeah.
Again, those tissues might be needed for everyone, Claire, if you've got more. But no, as I say, I thought the whole series was absolutely fantastic. Really looking forward to the next one. No pressure, boys.
I was going to make specific reference to that Louise Jenkins episode. Were you going to mention it as well, Steve? Did you say?
I was going to mention it as well.
Do you want to come in first, or because?
No, you go.
Well, it was just I listened to that episode today and wrote down a couple of things from it that just stuck with me. So, for those who don't remember, Louise Jenkins was a young woman who had, I think she was 25 once, she has cystic fibrosis, and told us the tale of how she'd lived all her life with cystic fibrosis and what that meant and what the medicines meant, and how that had changed drastically recently to a new drug. And so some of the things she said: cystic fibrosis is not part of my life, it is my life. Having cystic fibrosis is like having a second job. And the new drug that she was taking meant she'd gone from just living to be alive to actually having a life. And so it was a really powerful story. But I wanted to mention that we've been chatting about this again in our group, about the new NICE guidance, where they've sort of talked about perhaps not prescribing these drugs. Now, I'll confess I haven't fully read it, but it talks about not prescribing these drugs and saying actually that they're maybe not, they don't meet the bar for quality of life indicators, the QALYs, so they wouldn't be prescribable on the NHS. I might be wrong on that, and Jonathan put me up on that, but I found that hard to marry with what we heard from Louise in terms of the quality, not just the quality of her life, but in terms of the reduction in treatment burden. Now, I know we chatted to Rachel Elliott, didn't we, who talked about, look, we do have to make these tough decisions because, we give it to one person and we can't give it to another. But I do find it hard to believe that the reduction in the cost of treatment isn't warranted in this case. And so I went onto the Cystic Fibrosis Trust to see what they said. And they said, key benefits of these medicines, I know they're biased, by the way, but key benefits of these medicines will not have been captured in the way NICE measures cost effectiveness. The appraisal process and the way in which the draft decision was communicated caused significant worry, concern and anxiety for the CF community, and the way in which NICE measures the effect of transformative medicines on the quality of life for people with CF is insufficient. Now, I'm sure, and I'm not, this is not one for you to come back on, John, because it's not, I know you work there, but it's not you, but they're questions I'd like to see answered by NICE, because I think I'm sure they could come back on all of them with a reasonable and well argued point. But it was just, for the first time ever, I was left feeling quite disappointed with the decision that had come out from them and not really understanding it.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really involved with this technology appraisal, but I do know the people who were found it really, really difficult and really challenging for those reasons. And sometimes it's like we have to go on what the evidence is and what the considered opinion is around what quality of life measures are. But I do think this will provoke a reaction within NICE and make us think again about exactly how we deal with this. I'd be really surprised if that wasn't the case. And
that was the point I was making. It wasn't this wasn't a go at NICE. This was maybe just a question: is the way we do QALYs currently the best approach for something like this drug, which is quite unique, isn't it, in terms of how much it changes a person's life? That was my point, really. Not a go at NICE, who I completely appreciate have massive difficulties in this area and do a good job.
So just to add that, Jamie put something on our WhatsApp group, and I listened to it. It's called The Bottom Line, which is a Radio 4 podcast, and Evan Davis was talking to three people about blockbuster drugs. And what was fascinating is if you think that's complicated, wait till we've got these new genomic drugs where a single dose that might only require a single dose to change somebody's genomic pattern so that for the rest of their life. They talked about, I'm sure they said it was $1 million was the cost of one of these drugs that they were talking about. And everybody was just like, how are we going to afford that? So, it is a very difficult decision, but it's going to happen, and we're going to have to get better at it, because by Joe, it's going to get harder and harder.
Very good. Okay, here's a question for Gimmo and STC. So I had the Louise Jenkins episode down as one of my highlights. It was such an emotional listen. Incredible, and I learned so much in the run-up to the episode, and did I learn so much speaking and listening to Louise and in the aftermath. Can you remember, I think Louise is fairly unique in the guests that we've had on, because she said something at the end of the episode that I don't think any other guest has said.
Was it amazing?
I didn't listen to the end.
It would have been. It
listen
wouldn't
to
have
the
been.
end.
No, not during the record. I don't think we would have recorded it, Gimmo. It would have been in the chat afterwards.
Was it something about thank you for giving me a chance or an opportunity or something like that?
No. I think most of our guests and our demographic are relieved that
I remember.
relieved that the podcast is over and are reaching for their slippers.
I remember
their
now.
slippers and a blanket after we finished. And Louise said what?
She was off out into town.
She was out into town to the live lounge.
Yeah, out. And we said, "Is that
Good girl.
out?" And she said, "Yes."
Imagine that going out at 9:30 at night.
Yeah. Oh, I'm off out now. What? Thank you.
I was just about to say, can we get finished up? Because I've got I'm going to a club in a minute, so come on. No, maybe not.
Claire, a Series 5 highlight for you?
Well, certainly Louise was up there for me. Just a young person saying they want to live a normal life. That's really powerful, because lots of the patients I treated when I was a community pharmacist who are younger patients, that's really, everybody just wants to fit in at that age, and so that was powerful. But there was something that made me laugh out loud, and I was sitting on a flight to Canada. It was our kind of family holiday that we've planned for a few years, and I thought, I've got a bit of time, I'll listen to Neil Maskery's episode. And Neil he's kind of up there for me. I was a very junior pharmacist when I first started working at the National Prescribing Centre, and I think within about 2 minutes he said something about Claire Howard's words are ringing in my ears about this being a bit blokey. And I sort of sat on the plane and I just thought, yeah, my work here is done. So Louise was the highlight, but that did make me laugh out loud on an aeroplane.
And you were talking about this podcast, weren't you?
I absolutely was, yeah.
Yeah, it's a fair comment.
I think I've been your token woman ever since.
There's no tokenism around here, Claire.
No.
Fair
Right,
enough.
I got a quick question for all of you then.
Jonathan's our token Geordie.
Yeah. Right, Jamie's tested the two of us. I'm going to quickly test all four of you. On one of the episodes, I revealed that I'd done a bit of maths about what was the number of pills per second if you looked at the data for all the adults from the last census and the number of medicines that are issued. How many pills per second did I work out roughly we use in England for all the adults?
Bzzzt, scumbag Hayes. Bzzzt. 1,000 pills a second.
Yes, exactly. A nice round number, I know. But that is roughly what it worked out to be. So there may have been a little bit of rounding up or a little bit of rounding down. But can I just remind people, 1,000 pills per second.
Have the BBC fact-checked that? Do you know? You know how they fact-checked
but I've got
Donald Trump and Suella Braverman and people like that?
I've got it all written down. It's from
Okay.
the
He's got his working
NHSBSA
out.
and
Okay,
the
fair
UK
enough.
Census, yeah.
Sure, you're working out. Okay.
Okay, who wants to go next with another Series 5 highlight?
I think we've all done one, haven't we?
Well, if you've got two, you've got two, Jamie.
No, I was going to just go between Deborah Duval and Louise Jenkins. They were my dilemma.
Well, I would actually add for Deborah Duval. I think that would be, I picked my Trevor Sylvester, but after that, they were all brilliant. But I have a big soft spot for Deborah Duval, because if you talk about Louise and how she wanted to live, Deborah's was a journey of somebody who felt since the age of 11 when she was diagnosed with diabetes, and she was now in her mid-60s, and she chose the name of her drug, which was Deb on Fire, because she said, I'd like to be able to take a pill in the morning and wake up and feel like what it's like to be able to do what I want to do, because I haven't felt that since I was 11 years old. And I thought that was incredibly powerful.
She also picked This Is My Life, Shirley Bassey, as a song as well, which is an absolute tune. So good for you.
The bit that I remember from Deborah's conversation is, look, as pharmacists and medics and nurses, we learn the side effects of drugs, don't we? We learn that, we could rattle off the side effects of steroids.
Could you go on?
But when she mentioned her conversation with her consultants about, look, don't prescribe a steroid for me because it will cause me weight gain. Well, yeah, we can list weight gain as a side effect, but then when she listed what that means for her in terms of moving from a size 10 to a size 12 and then needing
I think it was size 6 to a size 8, actually.
new wardrobe. all of a sudden you see the impact on patients' daily lives, and the way that she described that, I thought, yeah, that's okay. Whose Christmas cracker haven't we had?
I've got a Christmas cracker, if you'd like it.
Yes, go on.
I'd like to introduce it with a song, though. Is that okay? He's the little boy that Santa Claus forgot.
No, stop that.
Which is one of my favourite Christmas songs. Always makes me cry, funnily enough. So my Christmas cracker is from BMJ, Christmas BMJ from 2016. Okay, and this is looking at the relationship between who Santa Claus goes to visit in hospital. Do you remember this? And it was called Dispelling the Nice or Naughty Myth. And they looked at hospitals in the UK and who got visited by Santa Claus. There was no relation between school absenteeism, so kids who skived off school, conviction rates or distance to the North Pole from the hospital. But, and here we go, Jamie, inverse care law. There was a relationship between socio-economic deprivation in England and the likelihood of being visited by Santa Claus in hospital. So the higher the deprivation score, the less likely you were to be visited by Santa Claus in hospital. There you go. So that's queuing you up lovely for your inverse care law story at some point in time. But yeah, and that also made me think of the Action Learning Set celebration that we had last week and the work that Adam Todd from Newcastle presented as well. And again, we'll put this in the show notes, can't we? But Adam's done lots of work on the sort of social determinants of health and health inequalities, and the study that he presented to us back then was around the likelihood of being offered or given lung cancer chemotherapy, and mapped it to deprivation scores, and there is an inverse care law there. So the higher your deprivation score, the less likely you are to be offered or given treatment for lung cancer. And again, it's just another one of those examples that I think is just really important for us. And he came up with this term that I loved, a compound noun, pharmacoequity. So that sort of health inequality as related to inappropriate prescribing of medicines. Just really, really good work.
It is a cracker, and it's a depressing cracker. He also highlighted the links between educational attainment and your exposure to polypharmacy. So if you leave school early, you're much more likely to be exposed to polypharmacy. And the work that Adam and his team are doing, marrying up the polypharmacy agenda with health inequalities, it's dynamite stuff. It's really something we've got to start thinking about in terms of who we prioritise for structured medication reviews, for example. Got to start to take into account what somebody's background, why might they be more exposed to polypharmacy. Brilliant body of work. Yeah, great lad.
Likewise, was in the room, was blown away by it. And the term pharmacoequity, to be fair to him, like all good researchers, he did say that it belonged to somebody else, and it was coined by somebody called Utib Essian in 2021. And it's ensuring that all individuals, regardless of race and ethnicity, socioeconomic status or availability of resources, have access to the highest quality medicines required to manage their health needs.
So go back to your Father Christmas story visiting hospitals. Could we call that the Santa inverse care clause? Santa Claus.
Oh, he's on fire. You know what? How much
Didn't
of
that
that
stuff you bought?
Yeah, I was about to say, how much of that Gabasentia have you had?
So I've got a non-medicine related Christmas cracker, if you'll indulge me. It is, let me just pull it down here. It is it's a song. So the Beatles brought out a new song this year, didn't they? Now and Then. So I don't know what you thought about it. I thought it was, as a song on its own,
Very
it
Beatles.
was decent, but it was more John Lennon than Beatles, and it was a good solid track. If it had been released at the time, we probably wouldn't be talking about it, but it's a good song. But it was more that it was it just was a piece of nostalgia that I think just hit home for a lot of people at the right time, because it's a song now and then. It's a song about loss, and of course this happened, you know, a couple of weeks after my dad died. So it was who was a Beatles fan, so it resonated with me. You know, I had my tissue out there, and John, you know, but I just thought it was a good song about loss, and actually it's a song about you miss people who aren't there, but grief doesn't sort of follow rules. It's just every now and then the thought of someone pops up when you least expect it, and you know, you miss them. And so yeah, I thought it was a great song. It was nice to see the Beatles. It was nice to see John Lennon on screen, and personally it was quite an emotional sort of thing for me as well.
No, I definitely echo that. It was Peter Jackson did the video, didn't he? I think, and used his magic to sort of aid John and George, and it was like, when I saw that, it was like, oh, hello. Really good. Yeah, loved it.
So I think I'm the last person to give their Christmas cracker. And like all of you, I gave it some thought. And we talked earlier about Gabba Sentia Spirit. But in the spirit of what we've done for this series, I wanted us to remember the Aural Apothecary Series 5 NHS Tonic, which has ingredients in it which I think would go down well at Christmas and would perhaps go down at any time into 2024. So it was the hard work of all the guests that we had on. I won't list them, but we'll put them in the show notes. But I was really pleased that we could come up with the opposite to the Sunday Times columnist who came up with his 10 ideas to how to save the NHS. And we asked 10 patients or advocates, and I think they gave us 10 better examples. So I'd like to give the Aural Apothecary NHS Tonic as the Christmas cracker.
Very good. And on that note,
Available on the website.
Indeed it is. A big thank you to Clare and Jonathan for returning to the podcast. Look, if you can make it to Cardiff on Saturday, January the 20th, we will be at Chapter Arts Centre for our show, Medicine, Music and Memories. That's Saturday the 20th of January at 7 p.m. Tickets available from Chapter Arts Centre website, chapter.org. Don't forget our new series, Series 6, will be released in the new year. Who have we got lined up? Anybody?
Ooh, I think we should give them a little teaser, shouldn't we?
Yeah, so one of your favourite podcasts, Steve, was Movers and Shakers, which was a podcast about Parkinson's and featuring people like Jeremy Paxman. And we've got Rory Kethlen-Jones, who was the former BBC journalist and I think one of the men behind the podcast. He's fantastic, so he's going to come and talk to us about Parkinson's disease and the drugs and how they affect him and various other stories. So I'm really looking forward to that one.
And how long he has to wait at the hospital pharmacy.
Indeed. 40 minutes. 40 minutes.
He was on Twitter today saying he had to wait 40 minutes at the hospital pharmacy for his medicines. Yes.
We've also managed to snare Bapu Jenner, who's from the Freakonomics MD podcast. I wrote a relatively crawling email saying I've been a big fan since the pilot episode, but I have. You know, if you've been listening to this podcast, you'll have heard me talk about it. And he's not just a physician, he's an economist as well. And so he's just got a book out as well. So I asked him if he would come on, and he said he'd be delighted to. So he's also going to be coming to talk to us as well.
Very good. What do they all have in common? Well, they get the chance to share a desert island drug, a career anthem, and a book for the Aural Apothecary Library. You can contact us via Twitter at Aural Apothecary. We're on LinkedIn. Visit the website, theauralapothecary.com, and you can email us at auralapothecarypod@gmail.com. Finally, for this year, on behalf of all the apothecaries, we would like to thank all of our guests that have joined us this year for taking time out of busy lives, for sharing their stories with us and with you, the listener. Also, a chance to say thanks to the team behind the team at the Aural Apothecary. It's growing all the time. And finally, to you, our listener, thank you for all your words of encouragement and support during the year. However you're choosing to spend the festive season, we would like to wish everyone a safe and Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. You have been listening to a 5 Apothecaries production. Sound engineer, Jimbo Slough. Original music, Jamie Brewster. Artwork by David Baker.
Thanks for listening to the Aural Apothecary podcast, where we always dispense with accuracy.
This episode of the Aural Apothecary is sponsored by OneLessPill.com and Jamie Hayes Executive Coaching.